Hey guys, it's Graham, and I hope you'll forgive me for recording this in a slightly lower register. It is July 2nd at the time of this recording, and it is late night, and I am out kind of in the middle of nowhere, but finally got a chance to record this for you guys. July 2nd was the original date of signing of the Declaration of Independence. It was finished and accepted on July 4th. That was the final day, but the July 2nd was the first day. Independence Day is coming up this weekend, so I am going to bombard you with books about the nation's founding 245 years ago. However, this isn't so simple as saying that a few men signed a document and it was all settled. They didn't wake up one day and decide, hey, YOLO, let's flip the bird to our monarch and just do our own thing. In order to understand it all, you'd have to go all the way back to Columbus in the late 1400s, then study the monarchy in England through the 1500s, just so you could grasp why so many Brits moved to America in the early 1600s. Then in the 1700s, the French teamed up with the Indians to fight the English in the New World. After that was resolved, you had the Stamp Act and a few other abuses from the monarch, and by then there were enough colonials who thought that they would be better off governing themselves. They put together a very strong case for it, laying out the morals and the legal justifications for independence, and the arguments were bulletproof on paper. It's too bad that wars aren't actually fought with paper. They're fought with bullets that are fired against men who aren't bulletproof. The men knew this, yet they went to war anyway because they believed in something that they valued even greater than their own mortality, and that was their freedom, the right to decide for themselves what to do with their lives, and not leave that to a distant body of leadership that didn't actually give two craps about them. Oh, whoops, wrong picture. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, there's no shortage of books I could share with you on this subject. The obvious one is 1776 by David McCullough, but that's not the book for this video. No, dear viewers, I've got two for you, and they're both fiction, but they center heavily on real people and real events. The fiction just gives you a character to follow, one who helps you see the time through their eyes and understand just why and how someone would sign up for the revolution at the cost of their own life. The first is Johnny Tremain, written in 1943 by Esther Forbes. The eponymous character is a young man in Boston in the 1770s, apprenticed as a silversmith, but his future is thrown into doubt when a smelting accident leaves his right hand crippled. He's bright and ambitious, yet in a labor-based world he's limited to remedial work as a courier. Because of his friends and connections, he's able to join up with the cause of the revolution, even participating in the Boston Tea Party and later in the battles of Lexington and Concord. Disney adapted this into a live-action movie in 1957 and even put together a catchy musical number during the Boston Tea Party scene, which I'll link to in the description below. I just watched the movie tonight, and while it's pretty abridged, it captures the essence of what happens, and I really enjoyed it. Why am I recommending this book? Well, for the same reason I recommended Gary Paulson's Woods Runner. It's fiction, but it shows you real events and real people, up close and personal. I myself have tried writing historical fiction before, and I've come up against a problem where I'm not comfortable putting my own words into the mouths of real people, even if they've been dead for hundreds of years. But since Esther Forbes created Johnny Tremain, the character, it makes it easier for me to read through his story as if I myself were living in his time, seeing the events of the world unfold around me. She handled this very well. That being said, the character of Johnny isn't exactly a blank slate for the reader to project himself onto. Johnny Tremain has his own personality and ambitions, and even does things the reader might not agree with. I found that he embodied a lot of traits worth having, such as his tenacity, his ambition, and his drive to overcome the various forces in his life that would otherwise limit him. He knows he's not much use as a skilled worker while he has a crippled hand, yet he finds ways to adapt and develops his mind all the while, even joining up with the Whigs in Boston. There's a lot of value in this book for young and old readers alike, not just in the historical setting and the events, but in the character of Johnny Tremain. He's inspirational, he's aspirational, and those are two of the few qualities that I really look for in a protagonist. And speaking of inspiration and aspiration, I find those qualities in our next story. The other book I want to recommend is called I Am Deborah Sampson by Patricia Clapp. I first heard about Deborah Sampson during a late-night binge of drunk history clips on YouTube, probably because I was watching a lot of community videos, and this one had Paget Brewster in it. She explains the story of Deborah Sampson, played by Evan Rachel Wood, who was more or less an American Mulan during the Revolution. The book is a fictional account based on a real person and real events, just framed as a narrative story told from Deborah's point of view. She's one of many children in a poor family because her dad's a sailor and he's hardly ever home. When he is home, he's only there long enough to knock up her mom and leave again, making things all the more difficult. When Deborah's dad disappears at sea, her mom has to give Deborah up for adoption. She's bounced around once or twice before she ends up with the Thomas family where, according to Clapp's tale, Deborah falls in love with one of her adoptive brothers. She also learns farm work and is committed to keeping up with the other kids in the family, all boys, who are physically strong. This easily plants the seed for her future cross-dressing escapades. Then the revolution breaks out, and all the boys in her village are eager to join up with the Continentals, including the boy that she's in love with. He runs off to war and gets popped, and she's so afflicted by this that she decides to take his place by pretending to be a man. Now, Clapp doesn't spell this part out in the novel, but according to Deborah's biographer, she was taller than the average woman of her day, which was only 5 foot. Deborah was 5'9". She was also built pretty stout. She didn't have a very feminine figure and didn't have the most elegant features facial-wise. So it was a little bit easier for her to pass as a man, but even so, the first time she enlisted in the army, she was found out and she had to move somewhere else. And then she had to enlist under a different pseudonym, yada, yada, yada. She was more successful in future attempts. I mention this because in the last few years, the most popular female characters in movies and TV shows, they never really have to go through the try-fail cycle. They're just made awesome, and they never really have to improve themselves. It's always just, oh, I was always awesome and everybody else was holding me down. No, Deborah Sampson is no such figure. She's got this idea, but no real idea, no real plan survives first contact with implementation. And we see her drive in wanting to succeed despite her setbacks, and she takes very big measures in order to succeed with this desire to become a soldier. And she was the first woman soldier to take a bullet for America. She did so in a fight with the British, which happened in Tarrytown, New York, near present-day Sleepy Hollow. She took 2 bullets to the leg, and she was so scared of being found out that she fled the medical tent before she could get full treatment, and she dug 1 bullet out herself with a knife. The other was too deep, so she left it in there, and it was there for the rest of her life. I won't spoil the remainder of the story. Suffice it to say that Deborah is eventually discovered. She's given an honorable discharge due to her good service record, and then she goes on to get married, has a few kids, and after many years of petitions to government officials and having character witnesses and so forth, she's given a partial pension with back pay for her time in the military. The novel doesn't cover all of the details of Deborah's life that I've read online, and I found a nonfiction book that more extensively examines what she did, but I can't recommend it only because I haven't read it. I will someday. It sounds amazing. Deborah Sampson had direct ancestors on the Mayflower, including William Bradford, but that was on her mother's side. That comes up a lot in the novel. It's got a lot to do with why she was driven to serve her country, not just because of the example of all the boys in her village. they put a lot of stock into Mayflower ancestry because people in that time period considered the Mayflower Pilgrims to be the ones that built America as it was constituted. But as for her surname, I'll need to do some more family history work to be sure, but if it turns out that she was related to Henry Sampson, another Mayflower passenger, through her father, well, then it would mean that she and I are distant cousins, and I just find that really interesting. I mention stuff like that to keep the age of our country in perspective. Like I said, 245 years this week. America is still very young. It's gone through drastic changes since its founding, and it will go through more in the future. It's my hope that as we study and amplify the lives of those who fought, bled, and died to build this nation, we will appreciate their sacrifice and honor it by keeping the freedom train rolling. So if you've got some time this weekend, or even this whole month, check out Johnny Tremain or I Am Deborah Sampson. Let me know what you think in the comments. And of course, if you liked this, subscribe. Help me reach more viewers with more book recommendations. TV sucks, and movies are only getting worse. Let's push back the tide of mindless entertainment by getting good books into the hands of new readers. See you guys out there.